It's a beautiful day in Japan. It's a beautiful day to play Go. The game on our agenda today is the 12th Oza title. It's 1964. Black is Kajiwara, white is the legendary Sakata Eio, who I'm sure many people recognize. He has taken many titles. The Honimbo and the Meijin among many of his accomplishments. Sakata Eio's nickname is the Razor. He's very sharp, and he likes to play a territorial style, and he is also nicknamed Shinogi Sakata. And Shinogi is the ability to live in a very difficult situation. So he's very hard to kill, is the designation there. But Sakata is also famous for being very territorial. He's a very territorial player. The Oza title is one of the big 7 titles in Japan. It's maybe not as important as the Meijin title or the Honimbo title or the Kisei title, but it is up there in the big 7. So this is Kajiwara's chance to, write his name into the history books. Now that we know about Kajiwara's mature style and his no-nonsense approach to the game of Go, as well as his no-style approach to the game of Go, we're going to be taking a look at these games through that lens, as it were. So, it is October 8th to October 9th, and Black begins the game. And here already we can see Sakata's style coming out. He's played a low 3-3 enclosure here, as well as playing this 3-4 up on the top here. This is actually a kind of opening that Sakata liked, where he liked to follow with this move or this move. And because there is a komi in this game, Black doesn't necessarily feel like he wants to, say, go for the double enclosure. That might be a little slow. And also maybe not as interesting for someone like Kajiwara. Also, Kajiwara knows Sakata's style. This is actually, at this time, Sakata is a 9-dan, and Kajiwara is an 8-dan. And they actually went up the ranks together. They're the same generation. In fact, they have a long history. Kajiwara, if you remember from earlier in this course, broke away from the Nihon Ki-in, the Japanese Go Association, after World War II to make the Go Justice Society and demand some reforms. The key player that kind of undermined their claim to fame was Sakata Eio. They sent the Nihon Ki-in, the Japanese Go Association, sent Sakata, and Sakata basically beat the living crap out of the Go Justice Society and pretty much removed all the dignity, and not dignity per se, but all their justifications. They didn't really have a leg to stand on, in a way, after they got beat by this, one, and at that time not so high-ranked player. There isn't bad blood per se between Sakata and Kajiwara, but they were, in a sense, of a rivalry generation. There wasn't one that was older, one that was younger kind of thing. They're part of the same age here. And so it's safe to say that Kajiwara is familiar with Sakata's Go. And he knows that Sakata likes to play this kind of low side here as white. And so we wouldn't say in Kajiwara's case that he's playing the player when his next move is to approach. In this case, we want to say that Kajiwara is playing the game. He's playing Go. He's playing against the stones that are on the board. He wants to disrupt the connection between these two stones. And now, if you were white, where would you play? All right, if you guessed the approach here in the upper right, a classic line, all the points to you. This is the correct approach, not down here. Why? Because once again, you're separating all your stones. They're not working together. So despite this stone being rather far away, there is some harmony between them here. It is a helpful move. And also, white doesn't want to play something like this or play a slow move like this. Black would probably just say he was happy enough to disrupt this enclosure and make one of his own. So white still needs to be a little more active here. And so Sakata approaches. Now, reversing the situation, you're black. Where would you play? Where's the best move? And this one even according to the AI. All right, the AI suggests the press, as always. White is very low on the top. So something like this here. All of white's stones are now on the third line. And black can do whatever he wants after this. He can cap, he can come over here and play the Shusaku diagonal, and white is being pressed so low. And so the AI already thinks that white is at a slight disadvantage at this point in the game. Not that the game is over, but that white is playing maybe a little too low for the AI to like. But again, we know Sakata's style. He's gonna play low, he's gonna take the territory, and then at the end, he's the razor. He's gonna use all the leftover little bit of agi to cut away at his opponent and win the game. It is now black's turn, and despite the fact that the press is available, Kajiwara doesn't play it. In fact, Kajiwara plays one of my favorite moves, the Great Slope. Kajiwara is in a way searching for the truth here on the Go board. Who's right, who's wrong? Who's played the correct move, who's played the wrong move? And so maybe he's not looking. He knew the press was here, but he wants to be more adventurous. He wants a challenge. He wants to, ferret out some new joseki and some new interesting shapes and see what the truth really is. And the Great Slope is a way to do that. It's a very adventurous move, and it's still in the same vein of pressing white low. So the AI still thinks that this is going black's way. White, of course, isn't going to play quietly. Sakata's not about that. Also, if he did play quietly, this is even better for black than if he had just played the press. I will tell you that this, compared to this is the better shape. This leaves a cutting point in your shape for black. This leaves no cutting point in your shape. And so this is almost unthinkable for a professional player to a certain extent, unless they are very, very confident that they have the advantage somewhere else on the board. So of course, Sakata's not going to play this. He's going to play the more complicated version. But in this sense, we're going to see Sakata's style appear. He's not going to play this regular one space jump and go for like running groups. He wants territory. So Sakata plays a very interesting move. He plays this wedge. And now Kajiwara blocks on the outside, and again Sakata wedges in, making black feel like he's stretching himself across the outside. And then white connects. Now black has a lot of cutting points here. He's got 1, 2, 3, 3 cutting points. Which one should you defend? All right, did you guess on the top? Because that is the wrong answer. I'm sorry. This is actually the move that Kajiwara played, but the AI thinks that this isn't even necessary. You don't have to worry, actually, about any of these cutting points right now. The way AI sees this is, white connecting here at 12 is a terrible move. These are basically forcing moves that black got. And so what the AI recommends is that black play right here. And then white would extend extend, black would connect, white would jump, and now black can come back in good shape and connect, and if white cuts, black connects, and black looks magnificent. He's undercut white's corner here, and he got these 3 stones more forcing over here on the outside for free, and white still has to capture this stone. So if white plays here, he ends in gote. He doesn't get sente. And so this territory isn't that big. Black can come over here like this, for example. This stone still has some agi. Black could even play here. This would already be a terrible opening for white. But of course, this kind of position over here wasn't really known at the time, and so it's not really something we expect to see. So instead, here again, we can see Kajiwara's style. He understands that white wants to take territory, and so Kajiwara is responding to that by saying, okay, then I will take the outside, which he does by connecting. We know here that Sakata likes territory, so he cuts. Black Ataris, white descends, and black connects. As you can see, Sakata has lived up to his name. He got a very large corner. But black can also be happy with his magnificent thickness here on the outside, facing his corner down here. Now, white does have the option right now to walk away from his corner and, say, approach down here, for example. But remember, the razor wants to leave some agi behind. He wants to leave a little sprinkle of something there that he can take advantage of. And so he's going to make his territory solid. He's going to make his group solid. And that way, when it comes toward the end of the middle game, he can start cutting away at black's lead, because none of his groups will have a weakness for black to take advantage of. So Sakata finishes off his corner. Now, it's clear if we think about the flow, if we think about the direction of play, which we know is a very key component to Kajiwara's style, we can see that he's come away from this corner with a lot of thickness that he needs to somehow use. And so here's where your sense of the flow of the game and the direction of play needs to come into play. Are you going to approach and attack this white stone at the top? Are you going to use your thickness and over here and like press white down? Are you going to enclose your corner maybe with a high 2-space extension? What do you think? I personally think those are all excellent options, but the real direction of play is in the upper right-hand corner. Approaching, doing something to white's stone is the correct direction of play. Why? Well, the AI recommends this 2-space high pincer. It works very well with black's center thickness, and it'll start to push white out this way, and black can make more thickness. Why not the lower left-hand corner? Well, that's actually because when white plays a 3-3 stone in a corner, and this is something to remember as well, it's automatically white's territory, and no one's really in a hurry over here. White doesn't really want to make an extension from this. For example, if black played up here, this move isn't very big. This side is pretty small. White can't make a big expanding territory over here if white plays something like this, right? He's gaining maybe 4 points, and now black would be able to follow up here, and this one stone's in a lot of trouble. Black's going to make much more here in the middle. So any extension from white from this low stone, something like this, it's not very efficient. White's not in a rush to extend from here, and so black is also not in a rush to approach white and enclose him. Neither player is in a rush in the bottom left-hand corner. The same goes for the bottom right-hand corner. If black were to make his large 2-space extension, This is a good move in concert with his upper stones, but now white can press here if he wanted. Or white could even, just jump or play an extension like this, which threatens the hane underneath. Or white could make a two-space pincer here. White has a lot of options in the top upper left-hand corner. The probably AI recommended one would be the press. Why? You're once again working down black and reducing black's center territory here, or center potential. So this is a great example of Kajiwara's mastery of the direction of play. He comes away with this big center wing opening up, and he uses it to attack white. And now we get to this point in the game. This is actually a joseki that we saw earlier in the course. This kind of side joseki. It was a very common scene joseki where white jumps and then presses black on the side. And there's a move that Sakata overlooked. Can you find it? The answer is this double peep. At first glance, this looks like an extraordinarily amateurish move. Most professionals will tell you, don't do this. Do not try and wiggle your way out of the position you are in. Don't do this right away, because all you do is remove potential, you destroy your own aji, and you get rid of any co-threats that you might have had. So most professionals would tell you, walk away from this. Come over here, approach this. Leave the potential behind. But if you do that in this situation, white will fix his shape right away. And black has no choice but to respond here. And white can do anything like, even jump like this, for example, or come back here and approach this corner. This one move would make this black group weak and almost invaluable. It would basically undo whatever black was trying to do. White could even come back up here and take these 4 stones. And now you have to wonder, why did black even play here, right? Another example could be, even if black were to stay around here and say not push right away, but make the 1 space jump. Again, white can just play this extension, and he's fixed his shape. And black's center thickness has no value. Not to mention that this isn't really territory for black either, because white has this stone descending to the second line. He can look into the corner, he's peeking into the corner, and he's peeking onto the side. This would have no value for black whatsoever. It'd be a pointless joseki that you have played, which means it's not really a joseki. So in this situation, black has thickness in the upper left, and he's made an attacking position by playing the knight's move. This is more territory oriented. This is attacking. And so he's going to cut. In this scenario, this is the best move for black. And this is why the AI thinks white made a dreadful mistake in playing this joseki. So white could block here and let black cut off his 2 stones. But now black is the one with more territory. And this wall isn't doing anything. It's just a weak group. It's not thickness. Black has a stone here, and black is thicker over here than white is here. So this would not work. White can't play this way. White has to connect. And now black pushes through. And you can see how these 2 groups are now working together, and white is left with just this string of awkward looking stones. White here has a few options, but the most important thing is getting his head out. He's got to get his head out. And now white isn't without recourse here. White has this magnificent Tsuji on the side. If black comes down, white connects. Black would try and connect up his stones. White could cut on either side, but the rule is cut on the side that you don't want first. If he cuts here, he's going to get these two stones on the outside. If he cuts here, he takes away black's whole corner. And then black would play something like this to finish off the 4 stones. This is possible. Sakata could do this. The reason he doesn't is because what does white have to aim at? Where's white's next move? Where's the next best move for white? Contrary to white's intended style, Sakata's intended style of leaving a weakness behind to come and attack at, there's no weakness at all for him to aim at. His corner is small. This corner isn't as big as he wants either. And black has this large growing territory in the center, as well as a safe group on the side, and a corner that's not going to be in any trouble ever. This would be completely against Sakata's style, and it would just be for a professional player, would be game over already. It wouldn't be like, a resignation right now, but it's easy to see that white has almost no chance of winning this game from a professional perspective. And so white is not going to play this variation. Sakata's going to look to do more intricate stuff than this. And here we are a few moves later on in the game. You can see that Sakata managed to dig out some of the corner here and also poke his head out. And then he enlarged his corner for free, threatening to connect to his 4 stones over here. They look, for the most part, dead, but there's a lot of potential still left in those stones. And Sakata used some of it to enlarge his corner here. This move in the late game, right, in the end game, can be worth a lot of points. And Sakata basically got it for free right now. Black needs to keep these 4 stones, or else these whole string of stones here is in a lot of trouble. A key thing that we can take away from this opening scenario is that thickness is always in trouble if you don't have space inside of it. If your opponent manages to flatten your thickness, then your wall just becomes a string of stones to attack, right? That's what happened to white over here. And it could happen to black if he's not careful. And so Kajiwara has to be careful. Another thing here is Kajiwara managed to play on both sides of white, and this white group isn't yet fully alive. It's mostly alive. Black connects and pushes in. White only really has 1 eye, or maybe 1.5 eyes. So it's not alive yet, but it's not in a whole lot of trouble either. And so Sakata he knows he's losing right now. Not, game over losing, but it's not looking like a great opening for him. And so he needs to seek complications, which is what he does. Instead of playing a safe move like jumping here or extending out into the center again or something like that, he has to come down and seek complications. And this stone is also offering some help to his group on the top. They're assisting each other in a way.
By the way, you can also watch these lessons on our platform, gomagic.org. Except there, you'll watch them with interactive quizzes right within the lessons and practical exercises right after them. And if you enjoy watching these Go videos and you don't want to miss others like this one, go smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and this is Go Magic.